Good morning, members, and welcome to this meeting of the Wigtown Area Committee. I would like to let you know at this point this Area Committee meeting will be live streamed on Teams and that the recording will be available online shortly after the finish of this meeting. This morning we have Max Hewn, Ward Councillor for Mid Galloway and Wigtown West, and Emma Halliday, Ward Youth Councillor for ASN and Disabilities in attendance. And I welcome you both to the committee. I hope you have plenty to say and to share with us. So members, moving on to item number 1, Sedgwick apologies and Chair's approval of members' remote participation. Could I ask the Clerk, Tracy Sonko, for the Sedgwick apologies and which members are in the room, and those linking in by Microsoft Teams, please. And I'll also confirm my agreement to remote participation. Tracy.
Thanks, Chair. Morning, everyone. We've got 9 members present in total, 3 members present here at the Ashwood House in Stranraer, being the Chair and our 2 youth councillors, Max Hewn and Emma Halliday, and 6 members present on Microsoft Teams, being Councillor Hill, Vice Chair, Councillor Dashper, Councillor Hagman, Councillor Ingalls, Councillor Marsh and Councillor McCammon, and I've got one apology from Councillor Scobie. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks for that, Tracy. Members, item number 2, declarations of interest. Do members have any statement of connection or declaration of interest they would like to declare? Councillor Ingalls.
Morning, Chair. Morning, everyone. Yeah, a declaration of interest in item 7 as a Chair Newton Stewart initiative. I'll leave the meeting for that one. Declaration of connection on item 8. Not sure whether I'll leave the meeting or not. I'll let you know when I get nearer that item.
Thanks for that, Councillor Ingalls. Councillor Hill.
Declaration of interest item 7. I'm a trustee for Newton Stewart initiative, and declaration of connection for item 8. I'll probably leave the meeting for that one as well. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Councillor Hill. So members, without any more declarations of interest or statements of connection, we'll move on to item number 3, which is the minutes of the previous meeting, the 5th of March 2025. Members are asked to approve these minutes. Are members happy to approve?
Yep.
I've got Councillor Ingalls and Councillor Marsh and Councillor McCarman all giving the thumbs up. Thanks for that, Councillors. Members, on to item number 4, 1st of April 2024 to the 31st of March 2025, end of year assessment of schools, quality and curriculum and service plan, 2024 to 2025, report by the Executive Director of Education, Skills and Community Wellbeing. The first report we are being asked to consider today is an end-of-year performance report from Education, Skills and Community Wellbeing Directorate in relation to performance in Wigtownshire. This is a very detailed report offering a great deal of information specific to our area. It is good to see in the appendices that performance figures are set against those for the rest of East and Galloway. This offers a clear comparative picture for members and the public. I'm particularly encouraged to read about the HMIE inspection mentioning the strengths of Rafad Primary School, and I'd also mention the positive report from Care Inspectorate regarding Belmont Nursery. I am also pleased to see that the proportion of school leavers from Wigtownshire entry positive destinations has exceeded the target set. Karen Bryden, Quality Improvement Manager, and Alison Chambers, Quality Improvement Manager, George Webb, Head Teacher for Douglas Ewart, and Jamie Farker, Head Teacher for Stranraer Academy, are here to answer any questions. Thank you to the Head Teachers for taking the time to attend this committee. I'm sure members will appreciate that while you can answer generic questions, there are some sensitivities around questions or comments identifying specific schools or individuals. I'll ask members to bear that in mind when asking questions, and I'll invite our officers in to give us any updates on their report before we go into questions.
Good morning. Thank you. No, there's nothing further that we would like to add other than, as we put in the introduction to the report, that given the timing of the committee, we presented you with an end-of-year assessment rather than a 9-month one today.
Thanks for that. And do our head teachers have anything that they would like to bring up at the meeting before we go into members' questions? Nope, not a problem. Members, open to you. I'm not seeing any hands up, so I'll kick off. And Councillor Marsh. Councillor Marsh.
Good morning, Chair. Thank you for letting me in there. Yeah, contrary to your introduction, for an end of year report, I felt there really wasn't very much in this at all. I welcome the HMI report for a FAD, very promising. It reads very well. However, for an end of year report, there's just not very much in it. Obviously, it's pleasing to see that the exclusion rates for looked after children within Wigtownshire are beating the regional figures, but I just felt that there isn't very much data in it at all. I suppose that's more of a comment than a question, but I just felt that, yeah, there just wasn't much substance to the report. Thank you, Chair.
Karen, Alison, is this the standard report that we get every year at the end of the year?
It is. So thank you for your question or your comment, Councillor Marsh. I think it's the timing. So you'll know that we're in the SQA exam diet at the moment. So therefore, an end of year report is not going to have the summary of attainment for 2025. It's just trying to find that appropriate time to share the data with us. We have an elected members seminar coming up to look at attainment, and so therefore maybe there will be more information, or there will be more information shared at that. But I recognise that when you're looking at literacy and numeracy, again, we are just doing our uplift for June at this time. So for an end of year report, it's do you do last year, which I think is not timely in terms of it's too far past, but to come in May, it's then just too soon before our end of year results start to kick in August again. So I acknowledge your point.
Councillor Marsh, is there anything that you would like to come back on?
No, thank you, Chair. The explanation does make sense. I mean, maybe do we wait in subsequent years for that more appropriate time to receive a fuller report? Would that be a wise decision to take?
The decision, of course, is with yourself, Councillor Marsh, and the rest of the councillors. What I would say is that once we have gone through the cycle of seminars in terms of attainment, it may well be that that will inform how you then want us to proceed in terms of our reporting.
So are we better bringing reports to a later committee, and would that be more detailed for what Councillor Marsh is looking for?
As elected members, we have been instructed when we bring our reports to us. So if you think it's a better time, say September, October, then that's for you to decide.
But there will be more information than that.
Yeah. Given the fact that we do our ACL uplift in June, that is then looked over the summer, so then we'll have more sort of literacy and numeracy data come August, September, and given that we do our SQ results in August, we'll have more data come September, October. So in May, you're always going to be that year behind, which is, if you're asking for my opinion, is too far behind.
This is an interesting one because it's been for years we've had this chat when we used to get these reports 6 months after the event and members were complaining that it was too late, and now we seem to be in a position where we're too early to actually have qualitative information. And I don't know if it's worth bringing you in twice a year or if that's possible, or maybe how would we go on with that? I'm going to open this to yourselves officers and then we'll ask members what they think.
So currently we come every 6 months, so it's a 6 month and an end of year report, but it has, so the instruction we've been given is that our end of year report has to be as timely as possible after the end of year service report has been presented, and that was presented there just before the Easter recess. So we were advised to come just now on this one because it's so the end of council year is the end of March, whereas the end of the academic year is the end of June, and report and results come in then. So it's around the information and the timing of the information. So whether you have end of academic year information in the end of year council report, which will be either too early or very, very late, or a decision around whether you perhaps, if we come back in 6 months' time, that will be November, which will be after we've had the end of academic year information.
And just to add, I think that's why the seminars are really important, because again, they can be more sort of in time with when our academic year finishes and when we have that results data to share.
The only difficulty with seminars is they're not public, and the public want to see the scrutiny body, which is the area committee, looking at this. But Councillor McCarman, do you have something to bring in this item?
Yeah, it was, Chair. It was just to concur with Councillor Marsh's comments, and reading it just last night, I'll admit, I didn't think there was much substance to it either. And it's, to be honest, I know there's process to go through, as the officers have explained, but it's down to us, like they've also explained, to request a different way of and timing of this. I think it's a waste of officers' time, it's a waste of our time discussing it right now. And that's not to be harsh or anything, I'm just being completely truthful. I don't think there's any point of having this in here if we're saying that May is a kind of tricky time and it's too early. I think we've already highlighted all the points there as to why that is. So I'd and like yourself, Chair, yeah, seminars are not within the public realm, so it's not really answering the problem. So I would be happy to wait till a later report rather than receive this, because it doesn't really say much. Thanks.
Thanks for that, Councillor McCalman. I don't think officers need to come back on that. I think that was more of a statement. Councillor Engels.
Yeah, it's a question on the paper, actually, on page 22. I could do a wee bit of clarity on what our exclusion policy is throughout the region. I was under the impression we had a zero exclusion policy, but I noticed there that school exclusion rates per thousand, are riding at 19.8, sorry, and the target was 15.9. And the looked after children one was 95.83 and the target 80.10. Given the increase in antisocial behaviour, it would appear that we're getting this trend more regularly now. Would you agree with that? Perhaps the head teachers could come in on that one as well. Thanks, Chair.
I'll go to the officers first and then we'll invite the head teachers in to speak on that one.
Thank you, Councillor Ingalls. Yes, the purpose of an exclusion is for there to be either a plan to be pulled together around a child or for a plan to be revised that is around a child. But to give a bit more context to the figures, because obviously it's a rate which is around per thousand. So across Wigtownshire in the reporting period, there were 34 separate exclusions within our primary schools. So across 10 Wigtownshire primary schools, 24 pupils were excluded and there were 7 pupils who had more than one exclusion, which gave a total of 34 exclusions. And in our secondaries in that year, the 2 secondary schools excluded 19 pupils in total, and there were 3 pupils who had more than one exclusion, which took the total to 22 exclusions. So in total, there were 56 exclusions between the 1st of April 2024 and the 31st of March 2025. So that was 56 pupils out of 1,887 primary pupils and 1,606 secondary pupils.
And then just to come into the question that you asked, Councillor Ingalls, is do we have a zero exclusions policy? No, we use exclusion to try and ensure that we have a plan in place for young people to return to school. So we do not have a zero exclusion policy. I'll now hand over to the head teachers who can give you a bit more detail.
I'll bring in Mr Webb first.
Thank you, Councillor Ingalls. What I would say, just answering your question, you were talking there just about antisocial behaviour. We follow the Scottish Government guidelines on exclusions, as Karen said, and when it's the best interest and the safety of either the young person or the young people, then we would exclude. However, when we're talking about antisocial behaviour, it's more in the community, which will be out with the school. And what we do is work in partnership with your youth services, our police and fire services to have a community approach to it. Because it may well be young people that attend my school or indeed at Stranraer Academy, but if we're looking at things that are happening in the community, it's a community approach that we're trying to take to it.
Thanks for that, Ms Webb. Mr Farquhar.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor. I think your point's well made, though, in that we've worked very hard within Stranraer Academy, as I'm sure all my colleagues have, in reducing exclusions, because the direct consequence of exclusion is often more negative to the young people involved. But we have seen, despite those efforts, a slight increase this year in line with the figures that you're seeing, which perhaps does represent that wider societal challenge that all our public services are facing, and which reflects on the challenges I'm sure our young people are facing too.
That's all right, Mr Farquhar. Councillor Ingalls.
Yeah, thanks for that, and thanks for the officer's breakdown of the sort of detail, which I thought was more of benefit to me than the rates that are in this this document. It's useful to know those exact figures, so I really appreciate that, and I know it's a real challenge. Not only in Wigtownshire, but right across the region and across Scotland in general. The problems we face with children nowadays. But I really appreciate the responses. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks for that, Councillor Ingalls. Any other members? Max?
Thank you. So it's good to see that the leavers in Wigtownshire are going to positive destinations, but what do you class as a positive destination? Like, what actually is that?
Mr Webb?
It's broken down into whether they're going on to employment, into training, going into further and higher education, so college and university. So what we look at is working with SDS, so Skills Development Scotland, as anybody who's potentially leaving, we would then make sure that they have something to go to. So as I said, into training, work, or indeed further education is what we're looking at. And our rates are significantly higher.
You happy with that response, Max? Anything else to add also? Mr Parker?
I might add just a couple of notable interesting exceptions to that, Max, if you don't mind. So, for instance, young people who are on the autistic spectrum and might leave school to go to the Better Lives Partnership as an example. Some of these third sector providers actually don't count as a positive destination, which I think is something for wider national government to look at. Equally, young people who go into a gap year, for instance. So if anyone takes the year to go travelling, or a charitable volunteer type placement, that will be seen as a negative destination, when I would argue it's not. So there's some interesting exceptions, as always, within that statistical data.
That's that, Mr Farquhar. Any other members? Any more questions? Councillor Ingalls?
Yeah, I hope you'll indulge me just for a second while we've got the head teachers in the room.
Indulged.
And a couple of education officers as well. I've spoken in the past about a barrier to 16 and 17-year-olds getting into the construction industry. A very simple barrier to get round, and I just want to flag it up here, and hopefully the head teachers will maybe take this on board. I think Jamie already has at some point. And that's the one-day health and safety touchscreen test. It's such a simple thing to achieve, and yet it absolutely opens the gate for a 16 or 17-year-old leaving to come into the construction industry. It's a direct employment opportunity rather than having them to have to go and deal with it before they can get the job. So just thank you, Chair, for indulging me in that one.
Thanks for that, Councillor Ingalls. I don't know. Yeah, Officer will come in.
Thank you for that, Councillor Ingalls. Part of my remit is looking at young persons guarantee and making sure that all young people across Dumfries and Galloway do have that positive destination. So if you and I would like to have a conversation offline about how we can support what you're suggesting there, I'd be happy to have that conversation with you.
Thanks for that.
Brilliant, that's great. Thank you.
Any other members with any questions? I'm not seeing any hands going up, so I'll go on to my question. You'll remember at the last committee that you were with us, there was a request, I think, from Councillor Scobie that members be invited to maybe once a year around with the localities, with the primary school teachers and the secondary school teachers. And we asked for that to be forthcoming. We've not had that yet. Can I make sure that that's action, please?
So all of our actions from all area committees as well as committee go through the action tracker, so we would go back to see if it's been captured in the action tracker, and then it would be taken from there.
Thanks for that. Can we make sure that's on our action tracker, please, Tracy? Thanks for that. So, members, with no other questions coming forward, I think our officers are let off lightly. But thank you for joining us, especially to our head teachers who are away from their busy days, and for coming over from Dumfries for us. I'll give the officers a wee second to vacate the hot seats. Recommendations. So, members, moving on to recommendations, members are asked to, number one, review the end of year summary of performance for our Wigtown Area Committee, 1st of April 2024 to the 31st of March 2025, as set out in paragraph 4.3 and appendix 2.2. Are we happy to review? Thank you. 2. Consider the area-based achievements and developments as attached in the key achievements section of this report, paragraph 4.4.1 to 4.4.6, and consider any aspects of performance to be referred to the relevant service committee. Are we happy to consider? Excellent. So members are happy to agree all those recommendations. Thank you. Members, moving on to item number 5, Wigtown Area Committee Discretionary Budget 2025 to 2026, report by the Head of Thriving Communities. The next report is the Wigtown Area Discretionary Budget Report. This report is asking us to note the funding available and to agree the key priorities, process and allocations for 2025-2026. I'll first ask members to note the total budget allocated to the area committee across the region was £312,000, and the amount available to Wigtown being £59,904 plus a carryover of £2,200 from the 24-25 budget, resulting in a figure of £62,104 available for allocation this year of 2025 to 26. Before I move on in my notes here, members, Gillian Collins is going to give us an update because I believe the figure's changed. Gillian.
Thanks, Chair. Morning, members. Yep, I received an update last week to confirm there's an additional £195 available as a carryover. So that means if members were minded to agree the carryover figure, it would be £2,395 to be carried over, which would give the discretionary budget a total of £62,299 for 2025-26 year. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks for that, Gillian. Are members happy to note that new amount of £62,299? Yep. Members will also note that member seminar was held on this matter on the 26th of March 2025, where proposed priority areas were identified. This year's priority areas are presented for members' consideration in Appendix 2. Ward officers, Gillian Collins, who's already spoke, is available for questions. Gillian, do you have anything else to add before we go on to members' questions?
Nothing else to add, Chair.
Thanks for that, Gillian. Members, I'll open the floor to you. Any questions? Councillor Marsh.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, it's not really a question again. I would just like to move to recommendations. I would suggest I agree with the detail in Appendix 2 as to where the monies should be going to. We discussed at length at the seminar about the current setup and how the monies were going to be divided, with a little addition to the wording for what used to be the Christmas lights or Christmas festivities monies. I think that additional wording allows the monies to be used for a wider range of activities. So with that addition, I would propose that we move to recommendations and accept the division of monies for this year. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks for that, Councillor Marsh. Councillor Dashper.
Yeah, thank you. Good morning. I'm looking at page 29. So we've right at the top up there, we've got Christmas decorations for Stranraer. We're proposing £7,750 to erect and dismantle the Christmas lights and Christmas tree display. That sounds like quite a lot for just erecting and dismantling decorations, proportionally. do we own them, or are we buying a new tree every year? How does the cost equate into that? Because that reads like a lot of money. Thank you.
So this is an interesting one, Councillor Dashworth. We've had a slight discussion at our meeting with Common Good and the groups that were there regarding this. One of our issues is that we are paying the council to do this on a Sunday, where the workers then get double time or time and a half or something like that, which adds to the cost. But I'll let Gillian come back and answer any further questions. I think I've pretty much hit the nail on the head of why the cost is there. It's because we're doing it on a Sunday out with regular hours.
Thanks, Chair. The money goes over to the Community Assets team, who hire the equipment and provide the staffing to erect the Christmas lights and the tree across Stranraer Town Centre.
So I think a question there for yourself, Councillor Ashburn, and for maybe myself, is can we, as an area committee, have those discussions with the community asset team to see where savings can be made here, if we can do it within regular work hours, or what our options are to save some money here, or to benefit the people of Stranraer. Is that a possibility, Gillian? I think we discussed that before, that was going to be forthcoming at some point.
Thanks, Chair. I think there's potentially a report coming to Stranraer Common Good in relation to Christmas lights in Stranraer.
Thanks for that, Gillian. I'll leave it in officers' hands. It might be worth bringing something to this committee just for the scrutiny of it, because it's this committee's money that's been paid for here. So we'll have that discussion, I think, at this committee as well. I think it'd be worthwhile. Are you happy with that, Councillor Dashper?
Yeah, no, thanks, Chair. I think if we can have that conversation with them, it's certainly around if we are doing this on a Sunday, then changing the days that we do this to save a bit of money, because it does read like a lot on paper for what it is. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Councillor Dashper. Councillor Dashper, I believe Kerry Monteith, Ward Officer, has put something in the chat. I'm not sure if she would like to expand further on that.
Yeah, the cost also includes the pre-testing of all the points, so that also includes hire of the cherry picker and equipment to do that pre-testing of the points on where the lights are connected across the town centre, and the checking of the lights.
Thanks for that, Kerry. Members, moving on to another question from Councillor Ingalls.
Thank you, Chair. If I could just go back to Councillor Datsford's point. I did an EMES on this, and I got back some useful information. And if you'll be aware, obviously, that the money has reduced that Stranraer get for this. Newton Stewart Christmas lights cost between £5,000 and £6,000 to test, erect and dismantle, and the work's normally done either early morning between sort of 5 o'clock and 8, or at weekends when the street's not busy. And I think that's the issue, because it's difficult to do it in a weekday when the town's busy and you're trying to get, cherry pickers into position to put street lights up. I'm pretty certain that, I'll need to go back and check, but I'm sure the information was that money doesn't completely cover the cost of those lights. I'm not going to upset the apple cart on this one, because I wasn't at the briefing, as you know. I couldn't make it. There's just one point that I noted prior to the briefing that I felt was relevant, and that was that the core communities, the core benefit communities from wind farms, who are sitting on huge pots of money, do they really need to get £300 from this? Could those core communities not, waive that, and that money go back into the pot and be distributed amongst communities that are not getting the benefit of wind farm money? That was my only point. I don't know whether that was discussed, Chair, in the briefing, but it was a point I felt quite strong in. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Councillor Ingalls. I've got Gillian Collins looking to come in on that.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks for your question, Councillor Ingalls. Yeah, that was discussed at the member seminar in March in relation to the communities who do receive wind farm money, and members in the workshop felt it would be fair and equitable for that money to be available to all communities, but obviously not all communities come forward and draw down those funds. I hope that's helpful.
Thanks for that, Gillian. Councillor Ingalls?
Yeah, it is, and I understand the position there. It just seems £300 a drop in the ocean if you're getting 300,000 a year from a wind farm. Are there core communities? Are you telling me there are core communities who do not apply for it?
Gillian?
I've got a list of communities who didn't apply for the discretionary budget this year, but I would need to double check with the core communities on the wind farm list to see how that matches up, and I can come back to you.
Aye, that's just for information, Gillian, if you don't mind. As I say, I don't want to upset the apple cart, but I feel, you know, that there are other communities who would benefit. Christmas lights and Christmas decorations are not cheap. They're difficult to maintain. They're difficult to get put up and take back down. You know, and even Christmas events, £300 doesn't go far with Christmas events. So anything we can help the communities who don't get that benefit from the wind farms would be good. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Councillor Ingalls. I've got Max looking to come in.
Yeah, thank you. So, just a question: were any young people involved in the decision making or the distribution of Wigtown Area Committee discretionary budget? And if not, how could they be involved? And obviously, the Youth Council's happy to link in if we can.
So I think this is the decision making forum today. So you're involved, but one thing that I would say is you weren't involved in the seminar aspect of this, and the seminar aspect is probably where a lot of this information came from, and where the lead up to the decision has been made. So we've not decided it yet, so you've got the chance to add in there, but maybe in future should we add our youth councillors to the seminar so that we can have a proper discussion there, and it means that you can add in at that point. And I think there's a bit more frank conversation at the seminar. Are you happy with that one, Max? Have I answered the question, or do officers feel they need to? No? There we go. We've dodged a bullet for Gillian here. Councillor Hill?
No, it was just to say it would be good to have the youth councillors available at the seminar, but it is during the school day, sometimes during the Easter holidays, so it's whether your availability suits it, but it would be good to have you there at those discussions as well. You're more than welcome, thanks.
Thanks for that, Max. Is that all right with you, Max? Is there anything else to add? Thanks for that. So, members, I don't have any more questions on the table, and I've got figures being pointed at to my left here. So we've got an additional £195. The question is, where should it go, members? Where do we want to put it? Do we want to put it to small grants, or do we want to put it to festivals and events? Oh, Councillor Hill?
For me, I'd possibly put it into the small grant scheme for festival and events to up that a little bit, so that if people are planning an event, there's a wee bit more money in there. Thanks.
Any members otherwise minded? Councillor Ingalls?
Yeah, I would support Councillor Hill on that.
Thanks for that. So I think we've got a decision there. I've got a thumbs up from Councillor Marsh, and nothing else on the line, and nobody in the room. Not Councillor, sorry, Gillian Collins.
Thanks, Chair. Can I just confirm on Appendix 2 that the additional £195 would put the festivals and events budget up to £8,306.20?
Yes. So before we move on, I've got a quick question actually regarding the carryover from last year of £2,200. Well, can you break that carryover down for us and why we have such a carryover?
Certainly, Chair. There were some communities who didn't either submit an expression of interest or have a complying application for the Christmas lights. So there were communities, and I have written them down. So do you want a list of the communities who didn't apply?
Yeah, that's fine.
So we've got Port Logan, Isle of Whithorn, Kirkham and Garliston out of your Christmas lights budget. Cree Valley Museum didn't submit their expression of interest for their allocation. And then there was £11 not allocated from last year's funding, which is part of the carryover. And then there was £184 from Princess Victoria Armed Forces and Remembrance that wasn't allocated to any spends.
That's great. And I believe that the Cretan Museum is going to be applying this year, or we believe that's the case. Yeah, no problem. Thank you for that. Councillor Ingalls.
Thank you, Chair. It is a question on page 29 and 30 on the museums. Newton Stewart Museum, most of them get £1,000, Newton Stewart gets 3,000, Mulla Galloway and Wigtown Trust get 5,000 each. Is there a rationale behind the decision for the three main ones, the Museum of Newton Stewart, Mulla Galloway and the Wigtown Trust, to get different figures, or could that not be split evenly between the three?
Gillian?
Members, I'm entirely at your hands how you decide that members wish to split the discretionary budget for the coming year.
Councillor Ingalls.
Yeah. Chair, I think we leave it for this year.
Thanks for that, Councillor Ingalls. Any other questions, members, before I move on? Nope. So I'm not seeing any hands up. So members, I'll move to the recommendations. Members are asked to, 1, note that £312,000 was allocated in the council budget for the area committee discretionary budgets in the financial year of 2025-2026. I'm sure we're happy to note. Note the total available to Wigtown Area Committee discretionary budget for allocation in 2025-2026 will be 59. Well, we've got a new figure, sorry, which is £62,299. Let's see, as detailed in paragraphs 4.1, 4.2, and with the verbal update of our new position. Are members happy to note this? Yep. Agree to carry over 2,200 from 2024 to 2025 discretionary budget with
2395. It's 2395.
all right. So agree to carry over 2395 from 2024 to 2025 discretionary budget with 60. Is that correct? The 62 there.
So the 62,299.
Yeah. So, sorry, we've got different figures here. That's changing my whole chair's notes. Sorry, members. So, yeah. So, I'll start that all again. Agree to carry over, number 3, agree to carry over of 2395 from 24-25 discretionary budget with
Available allocation being 62,299.
yeah, with available allocation of £62,299 as from allocation for the Wigtown Area Committee discretionary budget 25-26. Members, are we happy to agree that? Yeah. Now that we finally got there. And 4, note the strategic framework for 2025-2026 contained in Appendix 1, and 5, agree to allocate funding for the key projects and initiatives in Appendix 2 and the process to deliver them. Councillor Ingalls?
No, sorry, Chair. I was just going to say, had it been a Philip State, you would have got the numbers right.
Well, Councillor Ingalls, I'm not even going to answer that. So, members, are we happy to note number 4 and agree number 5?
Happy to note.
Thanks for that, Councillor Hill. And don't worry, Councillor Ingalls, I'll get you back someday. Right, members, moving on to item 6, Area Committee Tackling Poverty and Inequalities Budget 2025 to 2026, report by the Head of Thriving Communities. Our next report is our Tackling Poverty and Inequalities Budget for 2025-2026. Members will be aware through monitoring reports of the significant impact of these budgets allocations to our communities. Members will note at paragraph 4.3 of the report that there is a meeting on the 1st of May 2025. The Tackling Poverty, Inequalities and Housing Subcommittee considered the continuation of the existing formula used to determine the Tackling Poverty and Inequalities budget. Gillian, are you able to provide an update on what decisions were taken by the Tackling Poverty, Inequalities and Housing Subcommittee and how that will affect the Wigtown Area Committee tackling poverty and inequalities budget for 2025-2026.
Thanks, Chair. Yep. So at the Tackling Poverty, Inequalities and Housing Subcommittee on the 1st of May, a paper was presented and a decision was taken to agree the continuation of using the existing formula for 2025-26 and future years, but with the application of updated data. So that means for Wigtown Area Committee Tackling Poverty and Inequality budget, there will be a slight reduction to 43,416 for 2025-26 distribution.
Thanks for that, Gillian. We're now asked to note the funding available and to agree the key priorities process allocations for 2025. Members, any questions? Max?
Thank you. So given that young people and their families are often affected by poverty, how will the allocation of this budget focus on areas like food insecurity, energy and fuel, warm hubs, digital connectivity and access to opportunities directly benefiting young people?
Gillian?
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Max. That's a great question. On Appendix 1, there is an eligibility criteria, and it gives a bit of a framework over what applicants can submit applications for. And what happens is with the main grant, when applications are received, they're checked firstly to make sure it's a compliant application, so we've got all the right information from the organisations. And then the second part of the main grant processes will be a scoring panel, and we did invite youth councillors last year to be part of the scoring panel, but I think the timing just didn't fit with people's holidays. And basically there's a collective comes together to review each application, and then they're scored, and that information is then presented to yourselves and members in the September Wigtown Area Committee meeting. So it's not necessarily a done deal today. There's a lot of conversations, and there's an opportunity to present back, particularly under the main Tackling Poverty and Inequality grant funding applications to members, and have a conversation over who's getting the allocations and not. Is that helpful?
Thanks for that, Gillian. Max, are you happy with that response? Excellent. Members, any more questions? I'm not seeing any hands going up. Oh, Councillor Marsh.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, it was just one wee question. On page 32, at 4.6, I'm really pleased to see the bullet point that relates to the offer of £1,000 to Wigtownshire Sports Council. It was myself that brought this up, along with Councillor Hill at the seminar, because both myself and Councillor Hill sit on the board of Wigtownshire Sports Council, and discussion with the board members, some of which sit or are actively part of sporting groups, teams within Wigtownshire. It was brought up by them that some individuals, young people, were turning up to training or these activities and didn't have the correct equipment, or it was ill-fitting, or it was just completely worn, and clearly there was a need there for some financial support to basically remove any barriers or blockages from these young people partaking in sport. So that was why it was raised at the seminar. So I'm really pleased to see it here today. I just wonder, how will this go forward? Because of having spoken to the board members of Wigtownshire Sports Council, they were more than happy to take on board any extra additional admin that would be required for this to be implemented. I just wonder, do we know how that may work or operate, or is that something that officers would work out and liaise with the Wigtownshire Sports Council to work out? Thank you, Chair.
Gillian.
Thanks, Councillor Marsh. That's a great question. If members are in agreement to the direct offer of £1,000 to Wigtownshire Sports Council specifically for the purchase of equipment or footwear for athletes and low incomes, then what officers would do is a direct offer letter, similar to what happens for some of the discretionary budget. Funds will go out to the organisation and then they'll sign an agreement. That money will be transferred over, then we'll ask for monitoring reports periodically as we go through, and that will be presented back to members. Thanks.
Thanks for that, Jenny. Does that answer the question, Councillor Marsh?
No, it does, Chair. That's fantastic. Thank you. I mean, obviously, you know, it's a kind of new initiative. We've not done this before. You know, it may be the case that, you know, on those monitoring reports, if we weren't getting best value for money, or there wasn't a significant enough uptake in the fund, then maybe we could look to, you know, change it for subsequent years. But I'm really pleased that we've been able to put this up today, and obviously I'm looking forward to see how it unfolds next year. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks for that, Councillor Marsh. Emma?
Thank you. How will the committee monitor the impact of the funded projects on reducing poverty and inequalities for young people in Wigtownshire?
Jenny?
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Emma. So what happens in relation to the Tackling Poverty budget across the Wigtown Area Committee area is that when applicants apply for funding, if it's under a certain amount, they're responsible for submitting monitoring reports along the way. And if those monitoring reports don't come in, then we do chase it up. And we've got officers that work really hard behind the scenes to make sure that ward officers and ward managers have all the information to present to yourselves at committee to make sure we've got that information. If there's an award over £10,000, then a monitoring officer would be attached to that project. So they would do regular check-ins with the project just to make sure it's on track and to make sure that they're meeting all their intended milestones. And we do love when we get photographs in from groups because it helps bring reports to life and you get to see what happens. Does that answer your question, Emma? Yeah.
Would you like to come back on that, Emma? Yeah. Happy with that? Not a problem. So, members, any more questions? I'm not seeing any hands up. So, we'll move to the recommendations. And in part one, I'll start. I've had an edit made on my paper here. So, for the rest of you, for an edit, that £45,450 should read £43,416, just before I go on. So, members, note at the time of writing this report, the Tackling Poverty and Inequalities budget for 2025-2026 in Wigtown is £43,416, as outlined in paragraph 4.4. To agree to carry over the 1440 from 2024 to 2025 Tackling Poverty and Inequalities budget. Are members happy to note and happy to agree those two? Happy to agree?
Happy to note and agree.
Thank you. Move on. Part 3. Agree the priorities, eligibility and criteria for the Wigtown Area Committee Tackling Poverty and Inequalities budget 2025 to 2026 is detailed in the appendix. And 4. Agree to open a large and a small grant scheme for applicants to the Area Committee Tackling Poverty and Inequalities budget 2025-2026 and the timetable and the processes outlined in paragraphs 4.7 to 4.9. Are the members happy to agree on both 3 and 4? I'm seeing thumbs up and I've got agreement. Thank you, members. Moving on, members, to item number 7, community asset transfer, the Old Town Hall, 79 Victoria Street, Newtonshire, DG8 6NL. Report by the Head of Thriving Communities. Our next report is a community asset transfer. Oh, Councillor Ingalls.
Yeah, Chair, given we've 3 members down and 2 of us are going to have to leave the meeting, are we quorum?
Tracy?
Yeah, sorry, Chair, we've got Councillor McCammon, Marsh, yourself, and that makes the minimum 3-member requirement. So, yes, we'll be fine, Councillor Ingalls.
Okay, thank you, Chair. I'll leave the meeting for the next 2 items.
Thanks for that, Councillor Ingalls. Will you leave the meeting or will you just stay online but not participate?
I can stay online and not participate if you're happy for me to do that, or I can leave the meeting, whatever.
I think it's fine for you just to stay in and not participate and turn your camera off. It's not like
happy to do that.
Thank you. So, members, where was I? Our next report is a community asset transfer request from Newton Stewart Initiative for the transfer by way of a 25-year lease of the Old Town Hall, 79 Victoria Street, Newton Stewart. The report presents the community/business plan for the organisation along with officers' social value assessment and best value evaluation. The ward officer, Melinda Dolan, is here to answer questions. Is there anything you want to add to the report, Melinda? That's a no.
No, Chair. No, Chair. I'm
No
happy
problem.
to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Melinda. Members, are there any questions or comments to add on this one? Max?
Thank you. So how were young people involved in the community consultation or survey that informed the proposed people for the Old Town Hall or the wider local place plan priorities?
Melinda?
It's really a question for Newton Stewart Initiative, that one, but I'm happy to have a go at it. They certainly did online surveys, they did face-to-face events and publicised what they were doing, both through place planning and also through other work that they've done in engagement. And as you'll be aware, they have a big youth part to the work that they do through Vibe 75 and strive to involve young people in their what their sort of forward planning and the work that they're doing. The actual details of how many young people responded to the surveys and participated in the face-to-face events I don't have to hand, but I'm sure Newton Stewart Initiative would be able to provide that if it was something that you would like.
Thanks for that, Melinda. I don't think that information, if we make a decision today, could be taken forward. Are you happy to go forward with a decision today without that information, Max? Not a problem. Emma, did I see your hand go up, or were you? No, not a problem. So, members, any other questions? Councillor McCallum.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I've got no objection to this whatsoever. I think it's a fantastic report and a fantastic proposal and idea for this. And it'll be great to see it go ahead if agreed. But Melinda, just a very quick question. And we know that the exterior of the building has just been refurbished, if you like. And so is it still the council's responsibility for the upkeep of the town clock outside of the building?
That's my understanding. I know Colin Freeman's on the call here from property, and that might be able to give you a bit more detail. But my understanding would be it would be a lease that would ensure that the council retained the wind and water tightness responsibility for the building. I think there's obviously it's an old building and it's there's issues with that, and I think it would be a bit. I wouldn't have supported particularly that burden to be passed to a community group. And as well, there's obviously the snooker club in the upper hall as well, which complicates decisions about it, which is why I think the 25-year lease at this stage it was the way forward for the group.
Okay, thank you. Great, thanks.
Thank you.
Would Colin like to come in on that, or do we think that's necessary, Councillor McCallum?
If Colin wants to come in and add anything, but I'm happy to go with Melinda's response. Thank you.
Well, Colin's came on the screen, so I'll invite you in there, Colin.
Thank you, Chair. Melinda's absolutely spot on with her response, so I've got nothing further to add to Melinda's response.
Thanks for that. So, moving on to Councillor Marsh.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I am really pleased to see this application. Newton Stewart Initiative have become a linchpin organisation within Newton Stewart, and the addition of the old clock tower building to their kind of portfolio can only enhance the amazing work they've already done and are in the midst of doing. So yeah, I'm happy to agree without condition at 4.14 that they get the clock tower without condition. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Councillor Marsh. So, members, I'm going to leave it in your hands in the sense of you are both Ward 2 members and this is a Ward 2 issue, and I'm happy to go with what you guys suggest, which I believe is continue with the asset transfer.
Yeah, I'm happy to agree, yeah.
Which would be option 1.
Sorry, yes. Yes.
Thanks for that, members. So, without any more questions, in the room. I'm going to move to recommendations. Members are asked to 1. Consider Newton Stewart Initiative's transfer request as laid out in their Stage 2 Community Asset Transfer Application, Appendix 1, and Community/Business Plan, Appendix 2 and 2A. We've considered that. 2. Consider the outcome of the officer assessment on the request in relation to the council's requirement to meet best value, and as detailed at paragraph 4.7. We've considered this. 3. Note the outcome of the social value assessment of the proposed transfer as detailed at paragraph 4.10. And 4. Consider and agree an option from those listed at paragraph 4.14 for a recommendation to the Economy and Infrastructure Committee on the 4th of June 2025. I believe we are happy to note that, and we've agreed with option 1.
Yeah.
Members happy with that? Thank you, members. Now, moving on to item number 8, does Councillor Hill will bring Councillor Hill back in. Oh, there she comes. And Councillor Ingalls is back at his laptop, I'm assuming. Or did you leave the chat, Councillor Ingalls, or is he needing ring back in? We'll just give Councillor Ingalls one minute to come in. And there he is. Excellent. So, members, on to item number 8, disposal of land at Station Yard, Newton Stewart, report by Interim Assistant Director, Transport and Infrastructure. This report advises members that the land at Station Yard, Newton Stewart, has been declared surplus to council requirements and details the organisations and groups that have been consulted regarding potential community interest. Colin Freeman, Principal Estates and Assets Management Officer, is now available to answer any questions for the members. Colin, do you have anything to add before we go to members?
Thank you, Chair. Nothing to add to this report.
Thanks for that, Colin. Councillor Ingalls.
Yeah, Chair, I said I would lead for this meeting. I was involved with the owners of the industrial estate and signposting them towards the officers to get this before us today. So I'm going to leave the meeting for this.
Sorry, Councillor Ingalls. That's fine. Any other questions, members? Councillor Hill.
Yeah, I have a connection to the people that are interested in this land. I'm happy to stay in the meeting but not join the discussion. Thanks.
So we're back down to the quorum of 3, which is Councillor McCarman, Marsh and myself. Do we have any questions, members? Nope. So let me just get to the appropriate page. So going on to the recommendations, members, we're asked to note that 1,498 square metres of land at Station Yard Road, Newton Stewart, is surplus to council requirements as detailed in 3.1 to 3.4, as is in the appendix. 2. Note that the Community Council and groups listed in paragraph 4.2 in the report have been consulted regarding potential community interest. And 3. Advise if there are any other community groups that members wish officers to consult with regarding potential community interest. Are members happy with these recommendations? I'm getting thumbs up from both, so we're happy to move on as according to the recommendations. So, are we to call Councillor Ingalls back in for the next item, or has he declared an interest? No. We'll have a wee minute just to bring Councillor Ingalls in. So Councillor Ingalls is back. So members, moving on to item number 9, land at home park industrial estate Minigaff disposal. Report by Interim Assistant Director, Transport and Infrastructure. The purpose of this report is to advise elected members that the land at Home Park Industrial Estate, Minigarth, has been declared surplus to council requirements, and to detail the organisations and groups that have been consulted with regarding potential community interest. Again, Colin Freeman, Principal Estates and Asset Management Officer, is available to answer members' questions and comments. Do we have any questions or comments, members? Councillor Hill.
I have a statement of connection. I know the people regarding this land as well, so I'll stay in the room but not join the conversation. Thanks.
Thanks for that, Councillor Hill. Councillor Ingalls.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I was approached on one occasion as to how this could be brought before a committee. It was a brief conversation, and that's the only connection. So I'm going to stay in the meeting, and I'm going to take part in the meeting.
Thanks for that, Councillor Ingalls. Do any members have any comments or questions on the report? Councillor Marsh.
Yeah, just for complete openness and transparency, Chair, I don't think it precludes me from entering into debate on this item, but I know the individual who's interested in this socially as we play badminton on a Wednesday evening, but I don't think it hinders me from taking part in any discussions on the item.
Our Governance Officer, Tracy Sonko, is looking to come in on this item.
Thanks for letting me in, Chair. It was just to advise members that the decision to make the land surplus has already been made, so members are just asked to note that today and then identify any other groups that they wish to be consulted. So it's not actually a decision that this meeting's making today, so that won't preclude any of you from entering into any discussions. It's only to identify any other groups that need consulted. Thanks.
Thank you for the clarification, Tracy. So, Councillor Ingalls.
Yeah, I did think that. I did think that. I was just being cautious, Tracy. I think I have no objection to this. I don't know of any other group at all that's interested in this piece of ground. I have one concern I would like to flag up, and that is that when that industrial estate was first developed, there were a range of about 10 trees planted round about the industrial units that the council owns. They're all mature trees now, and I think there are 6 or 7 within this plot of land that the applicant's looking for. I have absolutely no qualms about him getting that area of ground, but I would like to have an assurance that those trees are not felled, that they are left in place. I've already put in a TPO to see if I can get that secured. I'm not sure where that is at the present moment in time. Maybe Colin can come back in on this and let us know how we do this, but it's really important coming into the entrance into that industrial estate that those trees are kept, in my view. Thank you, Chair.
Colin.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Ingalls, for your comments. Quite happy to include in the negotiations the preservation of the trees. As you say, they're well-established trees, so there's no reason for them to be felled.
Councillor Ingalls.
Music to my ears, Colin. They are beautiful trees. They really are going into that industrial estate, and it would be a shame to see them felled simply because somebody wants to clear the ground and store stuff on it. So whilst, as I say, I'm supportive of the application, as long as we can preserve those, Colin, I'm quite happy. Thank you.
There we go, Colin. We've got music through the tinnitus. So, Councillor Hill.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I do understand what Councillor Ingalls is saying about the trees. I do think they look lovely. My only concern would be if it's written into agreement, if we have bad storms, who would be liable for the trees if they came down and damaged any of the property, if they own the land. Thanks.
Colin.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Hill. It's envisaged that we will sell the land completely, so all responsibilities for the land and anything that happens on that land will transfer to the owner.
Councillor Hill.
So how will that fit in with them keeping the trees as they are. If you sell the land to them and they own the land and anything that happens on the land is responsible to them, then you can't put a clause on them cutting the trees down. Is that right?
Colin?
For you, Chair. What we can do, Councillor Hill, is we can write a burden into the title that requires the purchaser to maintain the trees and keep the trees and not fell them. But they will, because we're selling the land completely, they will take responsibility for the land, the trees, etc.
So my understanding of it, Colin, would it would be almost like a burden on the land is what we are going to put on, well, in simple terms.
Correct, Chair.
Councillor Hill?
So if the trees did come down in a storm, would they have to replace the trees?
Colin?
That's something I'm not clear on, Chair. If they were to fell the trees, then there may be a reinstatement order put in place on them. But if the trees were to come down for natural causes, I'm not sure.
This item is going to come forward to another committee, isn't it, Colin? No? Or is this the final destination for this item?
Chair, this is a report just seeking for members' views on any community groups that may have an interest in the land. The decision to make the land surplus and progress to sale has already been made by the Economy and Infrastructure Committee and the Council Strategic Asset Board.
So we've pretty much, we're past the stage of protecting the trees or putting in any kind of burdens at this stage. Am I right in saying that?
No, not so much, Chair. We're still, what we'll do after today is enter into a negotiated off-market sale with the potential purchaser, and members' comments and concerns today will be part of that negotiation.
Thanks for that. Councillor Hill?
Yeah, no, I'm happy with that. I think it's down to the council now to discuss with the purchaser and then seek clarity on what the best way forward is. Thank you.
That's right. Councillor Engels, would you like to come back in? Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'd be interested to know whether we are able to put TPOs on now, Colin. I know that for a while it was a bit of a struggle. A tree preservation order simply preserves the tree. It does what it says in the tin. At the end of the day, if you buy the ground, then you buy what's on it. And if there's a tree preservation on the trees, then I'm presuming you either buy it with that or you don't. So as far as I can see, I think it's important purely from the aesthetic point of view going into that industrial estate that those trees are kept. And I have put an EMES in requesting a tree preservation order put on them, Colin. I don't know whether that's still being done or how that works.
Colin?
Thank you, Chair. I can definitely look into the TPO issue for you, Councillor Ingles, and come back to you offline.
I'd appreciate that, Colin. Thank you very much. Cheers.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just thinking here, and maybe it's a question for Tracy, is there a way that we can capture a request or a desire to have a tree protection order or a burden put in our recommendations, or is that not for this report, considering it is a wee bit off subject?
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, because the decision's already been made, ultimately you're just being asked to look at community groups, but I can certainly record it as an action and take it up with Colin offline and certainly send out a response to members of this committee.
Thanks for that, Tracy. So, Councillor Inglis, are you happy for that to be taken forward as an action of the committee?
Absolutely, yeah, and I think I'm happy to send photographs across, or officers can have a look at it. I would imagine if there's a TPO going on, somebody's going to go and see them, you know, and they're in the full flush now. So yeah, you know, I'm happy with that to take it forward. Quite happy with that. Thank you.
Thanks for that, members. Absent of any more questions or comments, I'll move on to the recommendations, which are...
Chair, sorry.
Councillor Inglis.
Sorry, there was one other thing, Colin, that stood out on the drawing that went with this application. There's a footpath runs, it's a wee shortcut that runs from around the back of the shed that's there, and that footpath gave access to it just cut the corner off the main road, basically. However, the ground that footpath is on borders right up to the back of the industrial units that are owned by Dumfries and Galloway Council. So those units, there would need to be some form of access for maintenance to those walls at the back. Colin, if you can pick that one up as well. So it would be free maintenance to get in there and do any washing or decorating or whatever needs done, or maintenance repairs that need done on the back of the industrial units that back onto that bit of ground. Thank you.
Colin?
Thank you, Chair. Certainly be part of the negotiations and make sure that access is maintained.
Thanks for that, Colin. Thanks for that, Councillor Ingalls. Before I move to the recommendation, Councillor Ingalls, is there anything else?
No, you've had it all. I'm sorry it went off piste a wee bit, but I thought it was important to get this flagged up.
No, that's absolutely fine. So, members, moving on to the recommendations. 1. Note that the land extending to 629 square metres at Home Park Industrial Estate, Minigarth, as detailed in the appendix, is subject to council requirements as detailed in 3.1. 2. Note that the Community Council and groups listed in paragraph 4.4 in this report have been consulted with regarding potential community interest, and 3. Identify any other local groups to be engaged with in regard to the disposal of the land at Home Park Industrial Estate, Minigarth. Members, are we all happy to agree with these recommendations? Councillor Ingalls?
Happy to agree.
Yeah. Should there be another recommendation goes in there along the lines that we've discussed?
Regarding the trees?
Yeah.
I did ask Tracy, and Tracy didn't feel that that was appropriate at this point in time because it's not relevant to this report, as the decision's already been made. But it has been picked up as an action of the committee, and I've seen Tracy's notes, and it's there in bold.
Okay.
Councillor,
thanks, Tracy.
Happy to note.
Thank you, Councillor. So, members, we're happy to note and move on. I see a thumbs up from Councillor Marsh. Thank you. So, members, moving on to item 10, road network management, street naming development at Challock Farm, Leswell. Report by Interim Assistant Director of Transport and Infrastructure. In our final report today, members are asked to consider the naming of the new roads being formed at Challock Farm Development, Leswell. Lochnaw Park and Lochnaw Gardens are the proposed names for the new roads associated within the development. Caris Coulthart, Principal Technician, is available to answer members' questions and comments. And Caris, did I get the name right there?
It's Caris, yes.
Excellent.
Thank you, Chair.
So, anything to add, Caris?
No, happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Any questions, members? I'm seeing no questions, so I'll give a quick observation. And that I note that in the beginning they asked for a crescent, and what was really interesting was when I googled the crescent, it's actually there's a specific design to what a crescent should be, because I was surprised that the council said no to a crescent, and it got me thinking about other roads in the likes of Stranraer that are called crescents that resemble nothing of a crescent. So it was just a point of interest there. But Councillor Ingalls.
Yeah, I just wondered who came up with the name. Sorry, Chair.
I think it was brought forward by Wheatley Homes in relation to the neighbouring castle, which is Lochnaw Castle and Lochnaw, sorry, the body of water. Anyway, is that correct, Caris?
Yes, that's correct. We do try and encourage any applicants to liaise with community groups and so on and so forth, but sometimes they just put something forward themselves. And in this case, it was Wheatley that came forward with it.
Thanks for that, Caris. Any other questions, members? Oh, I thought Max was asking a question. Oh, Councillor Ingalls, are you looking to come back in?
No, sorry, that's an old hand.
Not a problem. So, members, with no more questions, we'll go on to the recommendations. So, members are asked to agree Lochnaw Park and Lochnaw Gardens as the preferred names for the new roads associated with the development as detailed within the appendix. Are members happy to agree the recommendations?
Happy to agree.
Councillor McCallan? Oh, thumbs up. There we go. And Councillor happy to agree. So members are happy to agree. And moving on, members to item number 11. Any other business deemed urgent by the Chair due to the need for a decision? I've not had any other urgent business, members, but Something I would like to bring up for a future report is actually the 20 mile per hour scheme that's being rolled out in Stranraer, and I would like to request a review, or I would like to request officers to come and talk to us at the area committee on this one. I did ask for this to come to this committee, maybe as a small briefing note or as a small report, but I was too late in asking for this. So I would ask for that to come in the future. I think it's important that it's discussed at a local level, because at the minute we're looking at I'm just reading a message from Kerry that we've received an invite today from Towie Topham for a seminar. I would like to still bring that to the area committee just for public transparency. Thanks, members. Is there any other thoughts on that one, members, or do I have someone to second me? Councillor Hill.
Yeah, I'm happy to second you with that. I think it needs to be in the public domain for transparency. Thanks.
And I know that talking to Councillor Scobie, he had a desire for it to be brought to the public realm as well. So I think we're on the right path there. Is that a hand up, Max? No, no. Is that all right, Tracy?
Yeah, that's fine. Chair. We'll have that minuted. Thanks.
Thanks very much for that. Members, do you have anything else that you would like to bring on to this agenda for our next meeting? Any reports? I'm looking around the room and I'm getting nothing. Councillor Inglis?
Yeah, when do we need to know what? Can we have a wee think about it, Chair, and come back?
Have a think about it, Councillor Inglis, and come back. I would say that I would ask Tracy what the protocol is for the timing that we need to give for a report to come back to this committee. Tracy?
Thanks, Chair. I think the next meeting in September, so draft reports would really be due around August time. I'm looking at Wilma for her timings, but around August time would be draft reports. So during recess probably would be a good time to get them in. Just bear in mind that the review of area committees has now went through, and there will be a wee change to area committees in the way that they start after recess. So you will get the opportunity for your deep dives, etc. that's been mentioned at previous meetings. You'll get that starting later in the year.
Thanks for that, Tracy. Councillor Hill?
Thank you, Chair. I understand there is some work being done with regards to the antisocial behaviour that's been happening across Wigtownshire, and so it would be good to see a report come back from all the different collaborative sources that are working towards that to put things into place. So that would be a good report to get back to this committee. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Councillor Hill. Tracy, have we picked that one up in an action? Not a problem. So, members, moving forward, I've got no further business. That concludes this meeting. Can I thank you all for your contributions? And our next meeting is Wednesday, the 3rd of September 2025. Thank you for attending today, and thank you to Abby for putting up with us.
Thank you.
Chair.
Thank you.